For over 25 years, the same question has echoed: what is the One Piece? The treasure that the Pirate King, Gol D. Roger, left behind. But the biggest clue he gave us wasn't a map, it was a reaction. He laughed. He laughed so hard he named the island Laugh Tale. Why? What if the greatest treasure in the world is actually the most tragic and funny joke in history? Let's rule out the obvious. The One Piece can't be just gold and jewels. Why? Because Whitebeard, a man who cared nothing for riches, said its discovery would turn the world upside down. Gold doesn't do that. Gold buys power, but it doesn't break the system. Besides, Roger's crew, like Rayleigh, didn't become absurdly rich and powerful after finding it. They simply went on with their lives, keeping a secret. Roger himself, the man who conquered everything, didn't use this treasure for himself. This tells us that the One Piece's value lies not in its purchasing power, but in its meaning. It's something that can't simply be spent. It's the culmination of an 800-year journey, the answer to the Void Century and the will of the D's. Therefore, the nature of this treasure must be something that directly connects to Joy Boy's story. And that story, we know, is about a broken promise. This idea that it's just the friendship we made along the way also doesn't fit, as Roger confirmed that a physical treasure exists. The truth, then, must be a combination of both. A real treasure with a purpose that transcends the material. The treasure must be something as universally desirable as gold, but with an intention so pure that it renders it useless to someone with ill intentions, like Blackbeard. This explains why only someone with the right will can truly use it. Its value lies not in what it is, but in what it represents and what it can do in the right hands. It's the final piece of a puzzle that's not about power, but about fulfillment. So what's the story Roger found so funny? Let's connect the dots. The central figure of Laugh Tale is Joy Boy. Joy Boy's central story is a promise he made to the ancient mermaid princess Poseidon. He promised to take all the inhabitants of Fishman Island to live on the surface, under the sun. To this end, he built the gigantic ark, Noah. Now imagine this. You are the leader of a prosperous and just kingdom. You are about to fulfill the most important promise in history, uniting two races and ushering in a new era of peace. What do you do to celebrate an event of this magnitude? You throw the biggest party the world has ever seen. The theory is that Joy Boy used the vast wealth and resources of the ancient kingdom to amass the greatest treasure in history for one purpose: to fund a global celebration, an endless feast for all races to celebrate the day the fishmen ascend to the surface. One Piece is, quite literally, the party budget. It would be an event to mark the beginning of the true dawn of the world, a symbol of unity, joy, and freedom. And this aligns perfectly with the nature of Joy Boy, who we later discover is the sun god Nika, the warrior of liberation, whose drumming brings smiles to people's faces. What's more Nika than a party to celebrate freedom? The treasure would include not only coins, but also the world's finest sake, rare delicacies from all over the globe, and perhaps even musical instruments from the Old Kingdom. It would be the embodiment of Joy Boy's generosity and worldview. He wasn't accumulating power for himself, but accumulating joy to share with everyone. The One Piece is the most selfless treasure in existence. If the idea of the greatest pirate treasure actually being the fund for the greatest party in the world made you smile, then help our crew grow. Like this video so more people discover this theory. And if you want to be part of all our future theory expeditions, click subscribe to One Piece Secrets. Now, Roger's reaction makes perfect sense. Picture the scene. Roger and his crew, after a deadly journey, reach the final island. They find the treasure, mountains of gold, jewels, and priceless artifacts. But next to it, they find a poneglyph. And on that poneglyph, Joy Boy tells his story. He recounts his grand plan, his promise, the construction of the ark, and how he gathered all that treasure for the celebration. And then, at the end, he apologizes. He admits he couldn't keep his promise. The cosmic joke is this: Roger found the prize, but also the story of a monumental failure. He stood before a treasure of mythical proportions with the detailed plans for the greatest celebration in history, an event that never happened. It's the greatest everything went wrong story ever told. It's tragic, it's heartbreaking, but above all, for a man like Roger who lived life to the fullest, it's hilarious. The irony of finding the party of the century, 800 years too late, was so absurd that the only possible reaction was laughter. He wasn't laughing at the treasure, but at the story the funny tale Joy Boy left behind. He laughed at Joy Boy's pure, almost childish ambition. He laughed at the tragedy. He laughed at the irony of having arrived at the end of the world, only to find the preparations for a party no one could attend. And probably he laughed at himself for having so seriously pursued something with such a simple and joyful purpose. It was the comic relief at the end of the world's most dangerous journey. This also explains why he said it was too soon. The party couldn't happen because the promise couldn't yet be fulfilled. Poseidon hadn't yet been reborn in the right person, so how does this turn the world upside down? The treasure itself doesn't. The fulfillment of Joy Boy's dream does. When the truth about One Piece is revealed, it won't be a story about pirate treasure, but about the benevolence and dreams of the ancient kingdom. The revelation that the world government's great enemy simply wanted to throw a party to celebrate unity and peace would shatter 800 years of propaganda. And Luffy won't just find the treasure. He's the reincarnation of Joy Boy. He'll fulfill his promise. He'll use Noah's Ark to take the fishmen to the surface. And then he'll do what Joy Boy couldn't. He'll use One Piece to throw the greatest party the world has ever seen, a banquet for all his friends and allies from across the globe. This act of global celebration, uniting all races in a single feast, will be the true final affront to the world government's system of division and oppression. It will be proof that Joy Boy's will has won. The party is the final revolution. Joy will be the weapon that turns the world upside down. Imagine the message this would send. While the celestial dragons feast in their sacred land, isolated and filled with hatred, the Pirate King will use his wealth to celebrate with everyone without distinction. Luffy's party will be the antithesis of everything the world government stands for. It will be the greatest manifestation of freedom, the celebration of the life that tyrants tried to suppress. One Piece, therefore, is the definitive testament to the spirit of the Old Kingdom. It wasn't about power, conquest, or control, but about joy, freedom, and unity. Roger found the story and the budget, but the protagonist was missing. Now the new Joy Boy, Monkey D. Luffy, is on his way. He won't just claim the treasure, he will fulfill the dream. He will use the wealth to create a moment of global joy that the world government cannot control. The greatest treasure in the world isn't gold. It's the promise of a feast at the end of the longest journey of all. And that, my friends, is a story worth laughing at. Roger laughed because he got the joke. Luffy will laugh because he's the joke, the embodiment of joy that will finally fulfill its purpose. The journey that began with a barrel of sake will end with a feast for the entire world. And there's no more fitting ending for the story of the pirate who values his friends and a good piece of meat more than anything else. But what about you? What do you think was in the plans for this party? Leave your craziest ideas in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you next time on One Piece Secrets.